Right, and we're live. I see we've got some people in already. We've got at least 5 people watching. We've got Junk Shop Library and we've got Tobin. There's 2 people that I know that are watching because they've been in the chat. And yes, Junk Shop, I do believe that he used to go by the name as Aussie Jesus. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm 95% sure that that's who we're going to be looking at today. Oh, just a quick one. I'll just take a second or two just to thank my patrons. That should have covered that. I thought I'd throw that in because most people thank the patrons when they start the live stream, so I thought I'd do the same thing. Right, so what we're looking at today, Ross Thatcher put out a video this afternoon about the rotation of the Earth. So we're going to play his video. It's only a short one, and we'll address what he has to say. So just bear with me. Let me know if the sound and everything is okay in the chat, and let me know if the sound is okay on the video. I think the sound quality on his video might be a little bit low, so you might need to turn it up when I'm sharing the screen. I did have to have my laptop downstairs on almost full volume to actually hear what he was saying. But anyway, we'll jump into the video now and we'll address what he has to say. I'll just mute myself while this is playing, just so that it doesn't feed back through my mic. I don't think it will, but if I mute myself, we should be safe. Just let me know if the volume, or you can hear the video once it's playing. Right, so Junk Shop, you were saying there's no audio from Aussie Jesus. Well, that's strange. No sound from Aussie Jesus. Right, I'll tell you what I'll do. Well, instead of muting myself, no, that wouldn't work. I know what I'll do. I'll close that down. I'll stop sharing it. I'll go back in. I might have not pressed the audio on it, possibly. I might mute. Screen audio. Right, I'll just remove that. I'll remove that share screen. Have a look. How do I get rid of that? Right. Let me stop sharing screen. And then go back to share screen. Share screen. Share audio. Let me just search for... I just wonder if it's because of my mic.
To repeat myself.
Right, back to StreamYard. Add stream. Let's go to Aussie.
Well, good day. And
let me know if we've got audio.
The sun would come out again right now. Just so I thought I had my lighting all sorted out beautifully. I can't see shit. It's right, there's a big dark cloud over there. It's going to come and cover it up again in a second. So the purpose of this video is to try and shut up once and for all without me having to repeat myself on a daily basis, as I find myself doing with so many topics when it comes to globetards who use the same old repetitive, parroted out, idiotic there's not even a word for it other than just stupidity. Really lame excuses for how they hand wave dismiss the reality of the flat earth while just accepting their spinning, speeding space pair hurtling through space. And the one that they love to use all the time is that they say that the rotation of the Earth is only 0.000694 RPMs, which that stands for revolutions per minute, as you already know. Whereas when we try and say the surface speed of any particular spot is going in miles per hour, and they say, but we don't measure revolution we don't measure spin in miles per hour. We do it in RPMs, revolutions per minute, as though a revolution per minute is a far more accurate way to convey the message of the speed that they say that the Earth is spinning at. And this one, I've been talking about it for years, and yet still, every single day, I will get another globetard pop up in conversations, generally on Facebook, because that's generally where I go onto the discussion groups to talk about this sort of stuff. And that they'll say that the Earth spins so slowly, it's half the speed of the hour hand of a clock. And they are dead right. It is. If you look at a clock, you barely see the hour hand moving. It moves reasonably slowly. But the reason for that is because a clock is generally no bigger than about a foot in diameter.
Yeah. So he's right in what he's saying, but to me he's just debunked himself, because it's just explained that the hour hand of a clock is, depending on the size of the clock, say the hour hand is 6 inches long. If the hour hand is larger, obviously the edge of that hour hand will be traveling at a greater speed, not revolution. The speed will increase, but the revolutions will still stay the same. That's why we never use speed when talking about rotation or revolution. Now, I've got this will do, if you can see it, because I'm not actually looking at my camera now, so I can't see what you can see. Take this, for instance. If that is revolving at so many revolutions per minute, per hour, or whatever time you want to give it, you will then have an idea of what I'm talking about. When I say that I've got something that revolves, is revolving at 100 revolutions per minute, 1,000 revolutions per minute, or whatever it is, whether it's the center of that spinning object or the outer surface of that spinning object, it is doing one rotation equal to itself. So the center is rotating at the same speed as the outer rotation. So if this is rotating at 1,000 revolutions per minute, you've got an idea of what it's actually doing. But if you're talking about speed, for this to be traveling or rotating at 1,000 miles per hour, so that it will travel 1,000 miles in an hour, that is going to be spinning at one hell of a revolution to actually gain that distance. Now, if this is a larger cylinder, it doesn't need to rotate at the same speed as something this small. Look at it this way. If you've got a push bike, a bicycle, so to speak, and you've got fairly large wheels on it, the rotation of that wheel would be less than if you had little wheels on it. The little wheel would have to rotate at a much greater speed to cover the same distance as a larger wheel. So that's why we never use miles per hour when we're talking about rotation. This isn't just something that's come up to try and debunk the flat earth idea this is on everything. We never ever measure rotation in miles per hour because it doesn't tell you anything. If you measure it on rotations per minute, per hour, or per day, you've got an idea in your mind of what that actually looks like. So that's the reason we use revolutions per minute, per hour, per day to describe something. Now, I've got the globe here. So according to the globe model, this rotates at 1 revolution per day, per 24 hours. So it will rotate once in a 24-hour period. If we're talking in miles per hour, the Earth is rotating at the equator 1,040 miles per hour due to the size of the Earth. Now, if this was to rotate at that speed, I couldn't even spin it. It would be going like this. And that's why flat earthers use miles per hour and not revolutions per day. That's exactly why they're using miles per hour, because to somebody who's never really thought about it, and you say the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, people have something in the mind's eye of something rotating at 1,000 miles per hour, and they're trying to imagine what it's doing. But it's not. It's rotating once in a 24-hour period. So that's the reason we don't use miles per hour, because it tells you nothing. If you've got 6-inch wheels on your car, they're rotating at a certain speed. That will then get converted through the gearbox, through to your speedometer, which will tell you that you're, say, traveling at 30 miles per hour. So you're traveling at 30 miles per hour. If you then go out and go to your local garage and you decide to buy bigger wheels, so you had 16-inch wheels on, and now you decide you're going to put 18-inch wheels on your car, and then you're traveling down the road and you're looking at your speedometer will read that you're traveling at 30 miles an hour. But you're not. Your speedometer now needs to be recalibrated, because your speedometer is calibrated to 16-inch wheels, and now you put 17 or 18-inch wheels on your car. They will still be rotating at the same speed. So that 18-inch wheel will still do one rotation, the same as the 16-inch wheels. That will not have altered. But due to the fact you've now got a bigger wheel on your car, when it does one rotation, it has travelled a further distance. I hope that makes sense. Bigger wheel, one rotation travels a further distance than a smaller wheel, but they're still rotating at the same speed. But now your car is going to be going much faster than what your speedometer is reading. Your speedometer that is governed for 16-inch wheels will say you're traveling at 30 miles an hour. You've got 18-inch wheels on. You might be doing 35, 38, 40 miles per hour, but your speedometer will still read 30 miles per hour until you get your speedometer recalibrated for the bigger wheels. So that's explained that bit. Let's move on. I think he still talks on about rotation for a while, but then he goes on to other things.
30 centimeters. Now let's say we've got a 24-hour clock, and this is, I should have started with 24-hour clock, and I started telling this clown again today about how, because I never really thought about doing it this way before. And I thought, well, no, just use an ordinary clock, the 12-hour clock, because that's the thing you're most likely going to come across. You know, you might find an old one in an op shop, stick a new battery in it, and away she goes. The time itself isn't really relevant. It's the speed of the hour hand, which is what the globe-tard is always off about. He just can't understand scale. And so I'd like to give a little lesson about scale to the globe-tards. Come on, Cloud, come back over. I'll just have a quick sip while I can't see shit. Not bad. So let's talk about scale. Everybody wants to scale everything down to size, and that's fine. You know, if you're going to be drawing a chart or a map or something, you want something you can put in your pocket and carry it around and be fairly accurate to demonstrate to scale something that you're trying to demonstrate. Like every photograph, for example, is a small miniature version of something in reality at scale. It's a scale size model in the photograph. Like you see a photo of a building. The photos aren't even.
I just noticed that Junk Shop's put in, so he thinks Big Ben moves faster than his watch. Well, in reality, it does. It still rotates at the same rotation as your wristwatch, but due to the fact that their hands are bigger, the bigger the clock, if you have a fairly large clock and you actually look at the hour hand, will probably be a bit more difficult to do. But if you're looking at the minute hand of a large clock, you can actually see that minute hand moving due to the fact it's got a further. The more it goes from the center, one revolution from the center is still one revolution from here, so it's still moving the same. But obviously, with it being a small hand on your watch, it's difficult to see that minute hand moving. But if you've got a large clock and you look at the minute hand, you will see it moving because it's now got a further distance to go due to the fact that the outer face of the clock is larger. So 5 minutes on your wristwatch is only going to be a small amount. On a larger clock, 5 minutes could be as large as this. So you can actually see it traveling that distance because it's still going to cover the same percentage of the circle on a larger clock as it is a smaller clock, which is what he's trying to explain now. What he's going to go on to now is if you take a clock, lay the face of the clock down so you look down at the hands, and you take the hour hand and then basically extend it out. He talks about using wire or a rope or something. But if you extend that hour hand out, the further you extend that hour hand out, the greater distance it's got to travel to do one rotation. So you move make the hour hand larger and larger and larger until you will literally see that hour hand moving. Because the circle now that you've created, it's got a much greater distance to travel. So you will see that hour hand moving, but it will still take it 1 hour to do one rotation. Well, no, not an hour. The minute hand would take an hour to do one rotation. The hour hand would, you'd still be able to see the hour hand moving. So in an hour, it's going to have moved basically the 5 minutes distance on your the face of the clock. I hope that makes sense.
Like 2 inches, 3 inches high, but that building might be the world's tallest building. What's it called again? The something over in Arabia, Burj Khalifa. I think that's how you pronounce it. Burj Khalifa. Anyway, the world's tallest building is 1/2 of a mile tall, and it's massive. The world's tallest building. We've got some massive buildings in all the cities around the world, but the biggest one is 1/2 of a mile tall. So when you see a picture of it, obviously it's a scale model of it. And so globe-tards love to think everything can be reduced to scale and still comprehend it in their minds in a way that actually makes sense. And so when they look at a globe model at scale level on their computer monitor or on their phone or wherever they're looking at this globe model, yes, at the rotation of once every 24 hours, then any particular pixel on that surface is rotating at 0.000694 RPM. But when we put this then to true scale, so because this is the world we live on, the world we live on is not a scale model. The world we live on is at full scale. That's just what scale is all about. It's a way of representing full scale.
Yeah, basically it's 1-to-1 on a scale, which is exactly why what you've just described there, exactly why we use rotations per minute or per hour or per day. When we talk about something that is rotating, we don't use speed because it all depends on the scale of the object we're talking about. So if I tell you that I've got something that rotates at 100 miles per hour, you've got no idea of how big that that thing is I'm talking about. I've got something that rotates at 100 miles an hour, which I do. The wheels on my car rotate at 100 miles per hour. But again, if them wheels are bigger or smaller, the rotation will either increase or decrease due to the size of the object that is rotating. So again, that is why we never measure rotation in miles per hour. It's always measured in revolutions per minute, per hour, per day, or whichever time scale you're wanting to use. Obviously, when it comes to the Earth, I've forgotten the figure that he's using now. When it's per minute, when he's talking about revolutions, the easiest way to look at it is the Earth rotates once in a 24-hour period. The fact that at the equator it's rotating at, I think it's something like 1,040 miles per hour. Again, that doesn't work. You'd never explain that to somebody when you're talking about how the globe rotates, because it's rotating at 1,040 miles per hour at the equator. But as soon as you start going north or south of the equator, that speed is completely different. On the UK, we're roughly up here, so the rotation of that is probably only 400 miles per hour, maybe, when we're talking about this far up. Depending on where you are, the rotation is going to be different, because we're talking about a globe. We're not even talking about a cylinder like this. So again, you'd never use it. He knows this, though. Anyway, I'll carry on with the video.
Small diagrams that you can pass around, whatever. So when these globe cards talk about the speed of the spin or rotation of the Earth is half the speed of the hour hand of a clock, this is what I try and present to you, some sense of scale in reality at normal, full scale. Now get this clock that I talked about, take the cover off it so there's nothing on the face, because you're going to need to tie a string. Preferably it'd be a really stiff piece of wire, but you know, that's not practical for the purposes of this discussion. So we're just going to take a piece of string and tie it to the hour hand and place the clock face down in the middle of a field or a paddock or sports field, whatever you've got access to. Most globe cards don't have access to large open spaces. They live in this small mentality their whole entire lives, so they've got no idea of the hugeness of the Earth at full scale. So you're just going to take this clock and tie a string to it and just walk out 5 meters, unraveling the string as you go. And now the goal is to try and keep that string perfectly straight. Actually, it's not even perpendicular, is it? Perpendicular is a good word, but it's still 180 degrees equal with the hour hand, and just at 5 meters, and just see, you know, how many steps you have to actually take per minute to see how fast you have to move to keep up with that hour hand, which you say is moving very, 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 very slow. And yeah, that might be fine at 5 meters. That's nothing. We'll try it out at 50 meters. You know, half the length of the football field. Now see how fast you actually have to start walking to keep up, to keep that string line straight, perpendicular with the hour hand. And you will find that you're actually starting to move pretty darn quickly. But 50 meters at scale is nothing. Do you know what they say the radius of the Earth is? Me either, because it's freaking huge. 6,320 odd kilometers. We're talking about 50 meters. That's not even 500 meters. That's not even a kilometer. If we're talking over 6,000, fuck's sakes. Okay, like, I normally understand it.
Yeah, I think it's also Jesus that's got a problem with scale. I think he's struggling to to get a model in his mind eye of the scale.
Stuff in miles, and it's slightly under 4,000, but it's about 4,000 miles. Now, if you were to take a piece of string, or as what you would actually really need is a very, very strong steel cable, and tether it to a center point, and rotate it around at 4,000 miles or 6,300 kilometers, 20, and rotate it just once per day. The speed that the tip of that hour hand or rope or tether or whatever you want to call it is moving at is the equivalent of 1.35 times the speed of sound. Mach 1.35. That's an invisible blur. About a third of the way down the length of that, if you're not game enough to go all the way out to the end of that and get swung around on the end of it, assuming you could attach yourself on a seat or a harness of some sort, you would be breaking this, what's it called? The speed of sound, the sonic boom barrier. You'd be making a sonic boom in your wake because you would be moving the speed of sound.
No, you wouldn't. And the reason you wouldn't is sound needs some sort of a medium for it to travel through. So in space, there is no atmosphere, there's no sound. You can't hear anything in space. Now, the speed of sound, if somebody knows different, they can put it in the chat. I'll put it in the comments below. But the speed of sound is measured at different speeds depending on what medium it's traveling in. So at the Earth's atmosphere, it travels at a certain speed. The further you go up in atmosphere, I would just be guessing that due to the fact there's less particles up there for the speed to travel in, that speed will be different. If you've got sound traveling through water, it travels at a greater speed than it does on the surface of the Earth. I'm going to have to Google this. Let me have a look. What will I be searching? Speed of sound. Speed of sound in water. Yeah, that'll do. Right. Sound travels at about 1,500 meters per second in seawater. Sound travels much slowly in air at about 340 meters per second. So exactly what I've just said. So the reason we won't get a sonic boom due to the Earth rotating is the atmosphere, which sound travels in, is also rotating with the Earth. So no sound to make. On the outer edge of the atmosphere, we now have almost a vacuum of space. Sound doesn't travel through a vacuum. So hence there is no sound in space. So there is no sonic boom to be heard. If something is traveling at that speed within the atmosphere, then it would make a sonic boom. I hope that clears that one up, because that's the first time I've Googled that. It varies by small amounts, a few percent from place to place, season to season, morning to evening, and with water depth. So exactly, the more dense the medium it is traveling through, the greater the speed. Obviously, water is denser than air, than the atmosphere. So sound travels about 1,500 meters per second in seawater and 340 meters per second in the atmosphere. Right, we're going to the next one. So that's why there will be no sonic boom, or there is no sonic boom due to the fact that the Earth is rotating, the atmosphere is rotating with it. No sonic boom to be made.
Just about 2/3 of the way, the length of such a tether. Move into about half the length, and you're going the average speed of a passenger airliner. I mean, seriously? we've never seen anybody ever jump with a parachute out of a passenger airliner going at cruising speed.
Yeah, and the reason for that is the atmosphere isn't moving with the aircraft. The aircraft is moving through the atmosphere at that speed. So if somebody was to jump out of an aircraft into the atmosphere, they would be hit by, if they're traveling at 500 miles per hour through the 500 miles per hour through the atmosphere. When they jump out, the atmosphere is going to literally hit them at 500 miles per hour, which probably wouldn't be a good idea to do. If the atmosphere is traveling along with the aircraft, not that the aircraft would be able to fly if that was the case, because it needs to go at certain speeds through the atmosphere to gain to maintain flight. So it wouldn't work. But if the atmosphere is traveling at the same speed as you, obviously jumping into it, you aren't going to feel anything.
At 500 and something miles per hour, that's ridiculously fast. And people say, oh yeah, but you can still pour your cappuccino or your tequila sunrises or whatever the hell you drink when you're on your flight, and you can get up and walk around. You don't feel motion, you only feel acceleration. Well, I got news for you. An aeroplane is an enclosed capsule. The Earth is exposed to the vacuum of the universe.
No, it's not. The Earth is also, to some degree, an enclosed capsule, just like the aeroplane that you're talking about. All right, the air within that capsule can be moving about, as in the atmosphere can move about due to heat transfer. Obviously, as the sun warms up certain areas of the Earth, that will cause the atmosphere in that particular spot to warm up, which will move up, which will cause circulation, and this is how we end up with different weather patterns and wind patterns. Obviously, as the Earth rotates and you go into the nighttime, that will cool down, so that will affect on how the atmosphere is moving. The other side of the Earth will now be warming up, so you would get the surface of the Earth warming up, which would warm the atmosphere, which would cause the atmosphere to move about, which is, I'm not a meteorologist, but that's roughly how you get the movement within the atmosphere, and different winds and different weather patterns. I've forgotten what you just said prior to that. I'll just go back a second just to see what he was saying on that.
The Earth is exposed to the vacuum of the universe. What is enclosing you in your globe-hearted model?
Gravity. That's what encloses us. That's what encloses the atmosphere to the Earth. I know you don't believe in gravity, but gravity is a fact. Gravity can be demonstrated. We know what gravity does. We can observe what gravity does. The atmosphere is held to the surface of the Earth due to gravity. So that is what encloses the atmosphere to the Earth.
Sweet call.
No, gravity.
And that's half the length of your hour hand. You drop that by another half.
And I'll just address the other thing that he said as well, that you've got the atmosphere next to the vacuum of space. No, we don't. At the surface of the Earth, at sea level, it's roughly, it does vary due to weather patterns, but roughly it's about 14 pounds per square inch. The higher you go, the atmosphere gets thinner and the atmospheric pressure becomes less. Oh, I don't have one with me. I've got one downstairs. All you need to do to demonstrate this is just get a cheap barometer, take a reading at the bottom of the hill that you're going to go up, climb up the hill. The barometer air pressure will reduce. When you're at the top of the hill, take a measurement of the air pressure, come down the hill, your barometer will increase in pressure due to the fact you've gone back down to sea level, which is exactly the same way as the altitude meter works on light aircraft. When it comes to light aircraft, the one that I fly, it has a altitude meter in there which works exactly the same way as a barometer does. It has this very similar workings inside it. It has I've forgotten what it's called now, but it's a small disc-shaped thing, which is basically it's a vacuum in there. So as the atmosphere pushes on that little disc, it squashes the little disc, which then causes the altitude meter to give you different readings, which is exactly the same way as a barometer does. So you can test this yourself. Use a barometer, go up a hill, see the difference. The higher you go, the atmospheric pressure gets less and less and less. This is absolutely can be demonstrated by either getting into a light aircraft or any aircraft, or climbing a large hill or climbing a mountain. Anybody who's climbed a mountain, why, when they go up Everest, do they have to have oxygen once they get to a certain level? Because the atmospheric pressure has reduced and the oxygen content, the oxygen content will be the same. There's just less of it. So you need to take oxygen up with you. That's exactly how that works. So the atmosphere is not next to the vacuum of space. It gets less and less and less the higher you go until you end up in the vacuum of space. So no, we don't have a high pressure system, as in the atmosphere, next to a vacuum. It's a pressure gradient. It gets less and less and less. And that pressure gradient is caused by gravity. Particles, any particles are attracted by gravity. The mass of the Earth attracts stuff to it, including the particles that are in the atmosphere.
You were actually moving faster than the top speed of a Formula One race car could keep up with you. This is what scale is all about. Now you take this all the way back to 6 inches from the pivot point of this spinning once per day 0.000694 RPMs,
which is exactly the same as the center point of that hour hand that you're talking about. The RPM at the center and the RPM at the outer edge of that hour hand are still rotating at the same speed, which is exactly why rotation is measured in revolutions and not in miles per hour.
Tethered piece of whatever, and yeah, it is moving half the speed of the average hour hand. That is why you have to apply scale, you stupid, dumb globetards. Scale matters. Yeah, I know you probably don't even have a girlfriend, so you would know nothing about how.
I've actually got a wife. So no, you are right. I don't have a girlfriend. Yeah, scale does matter. And again, the reason scale matters is why we use revolutions per minute, per hour, per day, is because explaining something in revolutions when it's talking about something rotating, it depends on the scale. So if I tell you, going back to my last point, if I tell you that I have this, or I have an object that is rotating at 100 miles per hour, or I've got something that rotates at 100 revolutions per hour, it doesn't matter the size of this, it still rotates at the same revolutions per hour or per minute, not the same in miles per hour. For this to rotate at 1,000 miles per hour, the rotation would be unbelievable.
Our size matters, but the point is, size does matter. In reality, at full scale, 0.000694 RPMs is 1,040 miles per hour on any one of those tiny little pixels on the edge of your spinning space ball. And so, yes, you would notice it. You should see it.
We do see it. We see it by looking at the sun when the sun comes up in the morning and when the sun goes down in the evening. That is due to the rotation of the Earth. So, yes, we do see it. On a night, when you're looking at the stars, you can see the stars moving throughout the evening. That is due to the fact that the Earth is rotating. So, yes, we do see the rotation.
Is very fast. So stop trying to spin bullshit every time you say, oh, it's only half the speed of the hour hand of a clock. It's like watching paint dry. Yeah, that's just like watching the cogs in your mind ticking over every time you keep repeating that same bullshit argument. Anyway, I got beer to brew. See you later.
I just stop sharing that. And we're back. I haven't been checking on the chat, so I don't know if there's much more being said in there. Yeah, globe tads. Yeah, is to be honest, I thought Ross was a little bit better than that, than to use that sort of term. But no, it seems that he's the same as the rest of them. Yeah, calls us globe tads. And Ross, we will always use revolution speeds rather than miles per hour when it comes to talking about anything that is rotating. This is not something just to debunk or to try and argue against flat earthers. Show me where anything is calculated in miles per hour when it comes to rotation. We don't, for the simple things that I've just explained. It depends on the size of the object which is rotating. So this rotating once, let's say rotates once in a minute, and this rotating once in a minute, this will have a greater linear speed than what this does, due to the fact that this is larger than what this is. This has to travel a further distance to do one rotation than what this needs to travel at. Miles per hour just does not work when it comes to rotation, and never will work, and will never be used. And we'll carry on saying exactly the same things, because it's the only way you can understand what rotation is. It's you that's making the mistake by converting rotations into miles per hour. It is true, at the equator, we are technically traveling at 1,040 miles per hour. But we're rotating once in a 24-hour period. So that's my short video or stream on Mr. Ross Thatcher, or as what I believe he used to be called, is Aussie Jesus. So I don't know if anybody has got any other comment. I've got any comments to put in the chat. That man really is impressive to knowledge, isn't he? Yeah. Very impressive. What else have we got to show that one? And globe tads, yeah. Oh, Inquisitive Quandary. Good to see you. And we got on that one. Show you that one. Yeah, fair point. How do I stop that? Stop that sharing. Right, so that's my little short video. Hope you enjoyed it. If I see any more flat Earth videos that catch my attention, I'll probably do some more on that. But anyway, I'll end me broadcast here, and hope you all have a good day. And thanks everyone for turning up. I see we've got 6 people watching. We've got Junk Shop. Kevin Chaos has turned up as well. Inquisitive Quandary. Tobin was here. I don't know if Tobin's still about. Tobin was here. Yeah, that's who's in the chat. But it says on my little counter that I've got 6 people watching. So thanks very much for turning up, and hope you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you all on the next one. I'll just end my broadcast here.